You think you're weak. You look at your life, your failures, your regrets, and you whisper to yourself that you're not enough. Somewhere along the way, you started believing that lie. Maybe it was when someone you trusted told you that you couldn't do it. Maybe it was the first time you tried and failed and thought, maybe they were right about me. Or maybe it happened so slowly you didn't even notice it. One setback after another, one disappointment after another, until you began to wear your doubt like a second skin. But here's what you need to understand. Your strength was never taken from you. It didn't vanish. It didn't disappear. It was buried under fear, buried under shame, buried under all the noise telling you that you're small. You're not broken. You've just been lied to. By the world, by other people, and worst of all, by your own inner voice. That voice that says you're not good enough, you'll never make it, why even try? That's not your real voice. That's the voice of every rejection, every moment you weren't seen, every second you felt like your effort didn't matter. And you started to confuse that voice with truth. But it isn't truth. It's distortion. It's the voice of defeat speaking over the fire that's still burning inside of you. You're not weak. You've just forgotten who you are. You see, strength doesn't mean you never feel fear. It doesn't mean you always win or that you always know what you're doing. Real strength is quiet. It's steady. It's the part of you that still gets back up, even after you've been knocked down 100 times. It's that flicker of a voice that says, maybe I'll try again, even when everything around you says there's no point. That flicker, that's the real you. The fact that you're still breathing, still standing, even after everything you've been through. That's proof of your strength. You didn't break, you bent, and bending isn't weakness, it's resilience. You've been taught to measure your worth by outcomes, by money, by status, by how many people approve of you. And when you fall short by those standards, you think it confirms your weakness. But those standards were never meant for you. They were designed to keep you chasing things outside yourself. Things that don't define you, things that don't last. And when you chase them, you lose touch with your inner compass. You stop trusting your own voice. You forget your original fire. And when you forget your fire, everything feels cold. Life feels numb. You go through the motions, but you're not really there. You're surviving, but not living. That's not weakness, that's disconnection. The world doesn't need more people who have been shaped by their fear. It needs people who have reconnected with their identity. People who remember what they were before the world told them to be something else. And that's what this is about. This isn't some empty motivational message about pretending to be strong. This is a call to remember what's already inside you. It's not about adding something new. It's about uncovering what's already there. The strength, the courage, the fire. It never left. It's just been buried beneath layers of noise, pain, and false belief. And now it's time to dig it up. Time to brush the dust off your soul and remember what you're made of. So when you feel weak, don't try to become someone else. Don't try to act strong. Instead, stop, be still, and listen. Listen beneath the fear, beneath the doubt. There's a voice in there that remembers. That voice will guide you back, not to some ideal version of yourself, but to your original self. The one who was never afraid to dream. The one who stood up even when no one believed. The one who hasn't disappeared, just been waiting to be remembered. And when you remember who you are, everything changes. There's a reason the world wants you to stay uncertain about who you are. There's a reason the people around you often seem more comfortable when you're hesitant, insecure, or playing small. Because when you doubt yourself, you become easier to control. When you second guess your worth, you become more obedient, more predictable, more dependent. And the truth is, the world benefits from your insecurity. It benefits when you settle for less. It benefits when you stay quiet, when you don't push back, when you don't dare to rise. But the one person who loses the most in that equation is you. Every time you silence your own voice to make others comfortable, you teach yourself that your truth isn't worth hearing. Every time you play it safe instead of standing your ground, you reinforce the idea that your courage is a threat. And maybe it is. To the systems and people who have built comfort around your silence. But your silence is not your nature. You are not made to live on the edge of your own life, watching others chase meaning while you shrink further into doubt. That isn't humility. That's fear disguised as strategy. It begins subtly. You get told to stay realistic, to stop dreaming so big, to know your place. And at first, you think maybe they're just trying to protect you. But over time, that message chips away at your identity. You start to internalize it. And before long, you stop even questioning why you feel so small. You just accept it as truth. But it's not truth. It's conditioning. It's a learned response to rejection, to failure, to criticism. And what's terrifying is how easy it is to let those responses become permanent. You stop trying. You stop hoping. You stop seeing yourself as someone who could ever rise beyond the story you've been given. But here's what you must see clearly. The world doesn't benefit when you become strong, confident, and self-respecting, because then you stop being easy to manipulate. Then you stop buying into the fear. You stop chasing cheap approval. You stop looking outward for validation. And when that happens, you become dangerous to every lie that kept you small. You become someone who no longer plays by the script handed to you. And that's why your insecurity has been nurtured. Because a confident, disciplined, awakened soul cannot be coerced. They cannot be sold false purpose. They cannot be bribed with shallow rewards. Think about how often you've held back from saying what you really believed because you were afraid of being judged. How often you've let others define your boundaries, your worth, your choices. That's not living. It's surviving under someone else's control. And the terrifying part is, most people never realize they've been doing it. They think they're weak when in reality, they've just been playing a role written by someone who didn't have the courage to live fully themselves. And you don't break out of that by just hoping things will change. You break out by reclaiming your voice, by doing the inner work to remember what you stand for and refusing to abandon it. Because here's the truth. Every time you say, no more, I'm not going to shrink to make others comfortable, you begin to reclaim what's been stolen from you, your voice, your agency, your self-respect. These things are not luxuries. They are your birthright. This isn't about arrogance. It's not about being loud or combative or needing to be seen. It's about standing with quiet strength in who you are, so rooted in your purpose that no trend, no opinion, no fear can sway you. It's about becoming someone who's not reactive but intentional, someone who no longer asks, do they like me, but instead asks, am I living in truth? Because once you remember who you are, you realize you were never the problem. You were just playing small in a world that fears your greatness. And when that realization lands, everything starts to shift. Pain is not a sign that you're broken. It's not proof that you're weak or that you're failing. Pain is the clearest signal that something is growing inside of you, that something is moving, that something is being reshaped. We've been conditioned to view pain as something purely negative, something to escape, numb, or avoid. But pain, in its raw form, is deeply honest. It tells you what matters. It shows you what needs to be healed. And most of all, it reveals the edges of your strength. The problem isn't the pain itself, it's what you tell yourself when you feel it. You get hurt and immediately the voice creeps in. Maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe I wasn't meant for this. This is too hard. Maybe I should just stop. But that voice doesn't come from truth. It comes from fear. It comes from the part of you that wants to stay safe, comfortable, untouched. But that part of you is not your highest self. That part wants ease, not transformation. And transformation is never painless. You see, real growth doesn't come with applause. It comes with discomfort. It comes with sleepless nights, with silent battles, with pushing through even when no one sees you trying. It's not glamorous. It doesn't look impressive. It looks like showing up every day to a fight that most people would have walked away from. That's not weakness, that's strength. That's courage most people don't even recognize. When you feel pain, emotional or physical, your first instinct is often to withdraw, to pull back, to stop moving forward. But what if you saw pain differently? What if, instead of seeing it as the enemy, you saw it as evidence that you're stretching beyond your limits? What if it was the sign that something inside you is being strengthened, not broken? Because that's what it really is. Pain isn't the signal to retreat, it's the signal to press in, to stay committed to the process even when it hurts. We don't build strength in times of ease. We build it when things are hard, when you're doubting yourself and still showing up, when you've been rejected and still keep trying, when everything in you says give up and you answer with not yet. That's where the real transformation happens. That's where the fire of your character is forged. And here's something most people forget. The people you admire, the ones who seem strong and unshakable, they didn't avoid pain. They endured it. They went through the same moments of fear, of failure, of darkness. What makes them different isn't talent or luck. It's that they refused to let pain define them. They didn't let it label them. They let it shape them. The pain you feel right now is not a wall. It's a doorway. But you can't walk through it if you keep running from it. You've got to lean in. You've got to trust that on the other side of that suffering, there's something new being born inside you. A version of you that is stronger, deeper, wiser. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And that doesn't mean you don't cry. It doesn't mean you don't get tired or overwhelmed. It just means you don't give up. It means you understand that pain is part of the path, not a detour, not a mistake, not a punishment. It's part of becoming who you were meant to be. So the next time you feel that pain, don't see it as a curse. See it as confirmation that you are growing, that you are alive, that something inside you still cares enough to fight. Because if you weren't strong, it wouldn't hurt. If you were numb, it would mean you've already given up. But you haven't. You're still here. You're still in it. And that means there's more strength in you than you even realize. You weren't born afraid. You weren't born doubting yourself or questioning your value. You didn't enter this world holding back your voice, shrinking your spirit, or apologizing for your presence. You came into this life with fire, with raw energy, curiosity, confidence, and a sense of possibility that hadn't yet been shaped by fear. Watch a child who hasn't been told who they're supposed to be yet. They don't hesitate. They speak, they move, they explore without second guessing themselves. That's the real you. That's your default setting. That's who you were before the world started layering fear on top of your identity. But over time, that fire you were born with gets managed, conditioned, quieted. You're taught that certain parts of you are too much, too loud, too intense, too honest. And so you begin to turn the volume down on yourself. Not because you're weak, but because you are trying to survive in a world that doesn't always know what to do with people who burn brightly. You get praised for being obedient, not for being bold. You get rewarded for staying quiet, not for being authentic. And slowly, without even noticing it, you trade your fire for acceptance. You start asking questions like, will they like me if I say this? Instead of, is this true to who I am? That's how fear begins to replace fire. Not all at once, but in quiet, daily compromises. And the most dangerous part is that after a while, it feels normal. You forget what it felt like to move without overthinking. You forget what it felt like to trust yourself. You forget what it felt like to dream without apologizing for it. You tell yourself this is what adulthood looks like. Playing safe, acting sensible, not making waves. But that's not maturity. That's submission. That's the result of fear convincing you it's smarter than freedom. What if that fire is still there? What if it's just been buried under years of caution, rejection, and self-doubt? What if the reason you feel restless, frustrated, and disconnected is because your soul is still burning and you've been ignoring it? That frustration you feel, it's not failure, it's resistance. It's the part of you that knows you were meant for more. It's the original you, pushing against the small life fear is trying to trap you in. Because the truth is, you weren't made to live in fear. You were made to move with purpose, to speak with conviction, to live fully awake and unashamed of your intensity. The world doesn't need more passive, tamed souls. It needs people who are on fire, not with rage, but with purpose, not with chaos, but with clarity. People who remember who they were before they were told to dim their light. That's the power of remembering your original fire. It gives you a reason to rise when life tries to knock you flat. It reminds you that you're not here to merely exist. You're here to create, to lead, to impact, to live. You have to understand, the people who try to put out your fire are almost always the ones who have forgotten their own. People who have abandoned their dreams will always feel threatened by someone who still believes in theirs. And so, when you start to wake up, when you start to reclaim your voice and stand a little taller, don't be surprised if the world pushes back. That's what happens when fire returns to a place that's gone cold. But don't let that stop you. Let it confirm that you're on the right path. Let it remind you that your light isn't a problem to solve. It's a gift to protect. You don't need to apologize for it. You don't need permission to use it. You just need the courage to stop hiding from it. And when that fire is fully awake again, when you stop bowing to fear and start answering to your purpose, you become unstoppable. Because the most powerful version of you has never been lost, only forgotten. People talk about motivation like it's the key to everything. Like if you just stay motivated, you'll achieve your goals, transform your life, become who you were meant to be. But motivation is fleeting, it's emotional, it comes and goes like the weather. One day it's there in full force and the next, it vanishes without warning. And if you're relying on that to carry you through, you're setting yourself up to fall. Because when the hard days come, and they always do, motivation won't be enough. What you need is something deeper, more rooted, more unshakable. That's where discipline comes in. Discipline is not about punishing yourself or living like a machine. It's not cold, it's not harsh, it's not robotic. Discipline at its core is remembering what matters most, especially when you don't feel like it. It's showing up for yourself when everything in you wants to quit. It's not about force. It's about loyalty. Loyalty to your future, loyalty to your highest self, loyalty to the part of you that remembers who you really are, even when the world tries to make you forget. And here's what most people don't understand: discipline isn't just about action. It's about identity. It's about making decisions from the place of who you want to be, not just reacting based on how you feel today. Because your feelings are temporary, but your values, your purpose, those are constant if you anchor yourself to them. Discipline says, I know what kind of person I want to be, and I'm going to act like that person. Even if I'm tired, even if I'm discouraged, even if no one is watching. Most people never get there. They spend their lives chasing moments of motivation, hoping for inspiration to strike like lightning and carry them toward their goals. But growth doesn't work like that. Transformation doesn't come from sparks. It comes from fire, a steady, burning commitment to stay the course even when the road gets dark, even when the voice of doubt whispers louder than ever. Discipline is what keeps you grounded when your emotions try to drag you off course. And the beautiful thing about discipline is that it builds momentum. Every time you keep your word to yourself, you strengthen your identity. You begin to believe again. You begin to remember, I'm not weak. I'm not broken. I'm not a slave to my emotions. You realize you are capable of doing hard things. You are capable of choosing purpose over comfort. And the more you practice that, the more natural it becomes. What once felt impossible starts to feel inevitable. Not because it's easier, but because you are stronger. This is where most people give up, not because they're weak, but because they confuse tiredness with failure. They think the discomfort means they are on the wrong path, but discipline knows better. Discipline says, of course it's hard. Of course it's painful. That's the cost of becoming someone new. And that cost is worth paying, because on the other side of it is freedom. Not the freedom that comes from avoiding responsibility, but the freedom that comes from mastering yourself, from knowing that no matter what the world throws at you, you won't be shaken, because you've trained yourself to rise. You have to get to the point where your daily actions aren't about how you feel, but about who you've decided to be. That's where the power is. That's when life starts to shift, because discipline doesn't just change your habits, it changes your identity. It transforms you into someone who doesn't wait for the right mood to do what's right. It makes you someone who lives with intention, not reaction. Someone who remembers their fire and refuses to let it go out. And when you live like that, when you move with that kind of clarity and commitment, people notice. They may not understand it. They may call it obsession or intensity, but you'll know what it really is. It's not perfection. It's not performance. It's you finally standing in full alignment with the person you were always meant to be. We spend so much of our lives waiting for someone to notice us, waiting for someone to believe in us, waiting for someone to come along and lift us out of the chaos, the confusion, the heaviness we carry. Deep down, we want to be rescued. We want someone to see how hard it's been and finally say, I'll help you now. But the truth is, no one's coming. No one's going to walk into your story and do the work for you. And that's not something to mourn. It's something to wake up to, because the person you've been waiting for is you. You are the hero you've been searching for. Not the person with the perfect plan, not the person with all the answers, but the version of you that shows up despite the fear, despite the past, despite the voices saying you're not enough. That's the real hero, the one who chooses to fight anyway. It's so easy to look outward, to look for permission or validation, to look for someone else to lead us into our own lives. But the moment you stop waiting and start becoming, that's the moment everything changes. You already have what you need. It may not feel like it. You may look at yourself and see nothing but flaws, failures, and reasons to quit. But that's not the whole truth. You've survived things that would have destroyed other people. You've kept going when everything in you screamed to give up. You've faced days when the weight felt unbearable and you got up anyway. That's not weakness. That's heroism in its purest form. Not flashy, not loud, not celebrated, but real. Quiet, steady, and earned. And here's the painful truth. Sometimes it's easier to see everyone else as strong, because it gives you a reason to stay small. It gives you an excuse not to try. You tell yourself that they had something you don't. More support, better timing, fewer scars. But you don't see their story. You don't see the nights they doubted themselves, the failures that broke them open, the shame they carried in silence. The only difference is that they stopped waiting. They stepped forward anyway. And that's the path you need to walk, not because it's easy, but because it's the only one that leads to freedom. It's time to take responsibility for your story. Not in a way that blames you for everything that's gone wrong, but in a way that empowers you to take it back. Because once you stop handing the pen to other people, once you stop letting fear write your chapters, you begin to see that you're not a background character in your own life. You're the one who gets to decide where this story goes next. And you don't need to be perfect to begin. You just need to begin. The hero isn't the one with the perfect past. It's the one who chooses to keep moving, keep showing up, even with the scars. Especially with the scars, because those scars are not signs of defeat. They're signs that you've been in the fight, that you've risked, that you've felt, that you've tried, that you've lived. You are not powerless. You are not waiting on some external breakthrough to save you. The breakthrough is you. It's what happens when you stop waiting and start believing that who you are right now is enough to take the next step. That who you are is exactly who you need to be to begin again. So stop looking outside yourself for the answer. Stop waiting for someone to rescue you from a life only you can rebuild. The strength you're searching for, it's already in your hands. The hero you've been hoping would show up, it's been you all along.